Hi everyone.
Hi, Farzeen. Uh, so, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining on time while we expect a lot more people to join it, but I don't think we should wait so that we value the time of people who joined on time. And we have these esteemed panel members, and we want to ensure that we take in so much that they have to offer today, right? So, welcome all of you. My name is Smita Shetty Kapoor, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Kelp. So today is a very important discussion that we have. Allow me to present my slides and introduce the guests today. Sure. I hope all of y'all can see my slides. And so every month, we do this awesome conversation with a good set of people whom we invite and pick their brains. So this is in association with Indian Lawyers Association and Kelp. A little bit about both these organizations. So ILA, the Indian Lawyers Association, is I hope you all can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So ILA is the Indian Lawyers Association, as I mentioned, is a voluntary professional organization for legal professionals in India. It has been formed to shape future of the legal professions across our country. So ILA is committed to creating opportunities for quality professional development, supporting the advancement of equality within legal profession, promoting the delivery of justice, facilitating effective law reforms, and advancing the rule of law throughout India. It offers access to practical resources to help legal professionals improve administration of justice, establish ethical codes, and build a professional network. So ILA promotes the exchange of information among its many chapters they have nationwide. Not worldwide. All right. So about Kelp, I um, co-founded Kelp in 2013. So it's a forward-thinking organization, and we are committed to transforming workplaces into safe, happy, and inclusive workplaces. So with a firm belief that employee well-being is an integral part of any organization's success, right? So Kelp strives to set new standards in HR practices and overall organization performance. So Kelp is pioneer in simplifying legal complexities. So if you look at our country across, I think Kelp is the only organization which is headed by a non-legal person, because when the law came in, it came with a very strong legal backing. But we realized that for it to be for the people, by the people, we need somebody who understands the complexities, simplifies it, and is able to reach out to each and every person. And that is when the idea of Kelp from PoSH perspective came in. So we take pride that we have worked with 2000 plus clients across diverse industries throughout India, and we have presence in around 53 countries. By presence, I mean we have contributed to 53 countries worldwide, and we have delivered services in 15 different languages. So this is what we do. Okay. So when ILA and Kelp came together, we wanted to do something in the space of PoSH. This is a humble way of giving back to the society. So it is something where we invite all these professionals, as I'm going to introduce them in a bit to you. And as I mentioned, uh, request them to help us peel this onion and understand the complexities and not look at it from 30,000 feet height, but actually help us be able to establish this law across your organization, and also support if y'all are an individual SMEs, help y'all to be a greater consultant, and the ethos of the law is actually taken across. So that's the idea of what we do. So so it's my absolute pleasure to introduce two inspiring women that we have on the panel today, who are not only leaders in their respective domains, but also they are deeply committed to creating safer, more inclusive workplaces. I had opportunity to chat with them before we got in, and I'm so excited to be presenting both to you. So first, I bring Kripa Rajendran. So Kripa is a seasoned software professional with close to 3 decades of experience across leading technology firms like Cognizant and HCL. She currently serves as a vice president of platform engineering at Thrive Digital, where she leads a delivery of cutting-edge software solutions for a US major healthcare client. Beyond her technical expertise, Krupa brings a strong
Smita gets stuck.
Sorry about that. Looks like a technical glitch at Smita's side. We'll just wait for a couple minutes for her to rejoin.
I'm sorry, I think there's some drop in network suddenly. I hope. I really don't know where I lost all of you. So I am going to start with introduction of Krupa. Krupa, could you hear your introduction? Or
Yeah, you started. I could hear some part of it.
okay, I will share my slide. All right, so I was saying, Krupa, I'll reintroduce you, Krupa, and according to me, I finished the whole introduction. Okay, and I was blissfully thinking why Krupa is not responding. So, Krupa, as I was saying, she's a seasoned software professional. She has more than 3 decades of experience across uh, uh, major technology companies like Cognizant and HCL. She currently serves as Vice President of Platform Engineering at Thrive Digital, where she leads a delivery of a cutting-edge software solutions for a major US healthcare client. Okay, so beyond her technical skills, what Krupa brings in is a very strong voice on workplace safety. So as the presiding officer of internal committee at Thrive, and with her PoSH committee experience in her earlier roles, so her passion is something that we see very clearly, and you will see it today in our conversation, for creating respectful, safe workplaces across, and it shines, and her initiatives that she has taken over a period of time. So we are glad to have you here, Krupa.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be part of this important conversation hosted by Kelp and Indian Lawyers Association. I've seen firsthand how integrating learning with leadership modeling can transform how safety is perceived in the workplace. It's not just as a policy, but as a shared value. I look forward to exchanging ideas with this panel and also learning from your experience as well. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this.
Thank you, Krupa. Thank you so much. And joining with her is Divya Chanti. Divya is DEI and People Practices Specialist, currently the Deputy Manager HR at River Mobility. They hold an MSc in Human Resources and Organizational Behavior from London School of Economics, where they founded the Management DEI Initiative and was part of Mental Health Collective. So Divya brings both academics and field experience to her work. Her research, and I was so excited to know about it, that her research on behavioral science and queerness in media was even published in First Post. So at Rivers, they have been instrumental in shaping foundational policies like code of business conduct, equal opportunity, hiring, and of course, PoSH. So they also lead IC education and governance across their organization. So their work is driven by deep commitment to intersectionality, ethical leadership, and inclusion. So welcome, Divya. Looking forward to our conversation today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to be part of this panel. I genuinely believe that even the topic that we're going to talk today is a very important discussion that we actually need to have. And yeah, there's a lot of scope to learn. So I'm just very humbled to also to be here.
Thank you so much. So kind of you, both of you, for accepting our invitation. And let's start with that. Why this conversation? And the topic is PoSH Training Enough? Exploring the shift in workplace safety conversations. So law came in 2013, and there were 5 things that were required by law. One of it was creating employee awareness. Trust me, that what ripples around in India. What is employee awareness session? What is it? Should we even do it? Oh, this is an additional budget now we have to allocate to this. This has to be done yearly. How does it matter? If we start talking about it, we will have more cases. This is what I heard across, I was a little heartbroken because I thought it's not enough. Conversations are not enough, right? And we are going to explore that today. And I really don't want to don't want to start with a statement saying that this is not enough and there should be more. Let's understand from all of us today that what do they think about it. So fundamental truth is PoSH training is a legal requirement. Okay, so but very important. Does it say that this is a marker of inclusive culture? Question mark, right? So while it's crucial for compliance, ticking the box with annual training, is it enough? Okay, the law mandates it, but culture sustains it, right? Organization must ask beyond compliance. What do we do beyond compliance? What are we doing? What are we continuously doing to create safe workplaces, equitable workplaces? And it's not only for women, but every identity that we have at workplaces. So what are we doing continuously? Okay. So PoSH is the legal minimum, but not cultural standard. So next important point is compliance not equal to safety? So many firms treat compliance like safety has been handled. Okay, 5 things written, check, check, check. We are safe. We are feeling nice about it. We are taken care of. But does real safety, isn't real safety more than just list of rules, right? Isn't it everyday behaviors? A PoSH module and simple PoSH module, can it shift the mindsets alone? Right? If manager interrupts a woman more often, or not only a woman, but somebody from a different background, and that person is getting interrupted, or a team is trivializing joking about boundaries, trivializing the whole aspect. So those are culture gaps and not policy gaps, right? So training must be followed by behavioral role modeling, and that is what Krupa started with, and leadership accountability, and that's what we think very strongly. So third important aspect that we wanted to bring about is about intersectionality matters. It's not only a woman from a particular woman in a particular organization. Okay, there are layers. It could be a Dalit woman from who identifies themselves as a queer. It could be that they also face disability of some sort. So there are layers and layers of it, right? So let's not forget that safety is not experienced equally, right? So intersectionality does is there, and it allows us to see the full picture and tailor support. So we have to, as PoSH experts, are able to identify those intersectionality and deal with those aspects differently, right? So this is something that we will be discussing. And culture drives courage, my favorite sentence actually all the time. So psychological safety is a real driver of reporting. So do people really feel safe to call out any inappropriate behavior, any disrespectful behavior, or any power misuse? So PoSH can only work if employees trust the system. So without psychological safety, even best policies does not make sense. So culture is what enables the courage. So 73% of employees prefer working at organizations with strong DEI. This is what McKinsey says. And a lot of people say that money drives people, money, give them more money and they'll stay back. Here is a report which says something different. So are we even looking at it? Yeah. 60% of women don't report workplace harassment due to fear of retaliation or inaction. Yes, and that's true. And I'll tell you, I could be one of them. So when I started my career 25, 26 years back, when I faced harassment, I wouldn't have reported it. I have not, forget wouldn't, I'm saying I have not reported it, right? It was because I was not sure what will happen to my job. I was the first woman in my family to step out and go for an external job. So my question was, what will my family think if I tell them, okay, now I'm facing sexual harassment? Will that dampen the whole womankind from my community, right? So yes, women struggle to report. And inclusion is prevention. So as we spoke about intersectionality, I think DEI work is important, and that will actually help us reduce the risk of harassment. So with that, I would want to start with our set of questions that we are looking at. So I will jump into the questions. We have listed some lovely questions for both the panel members. I'll take a pause if anybody wants to chime into the introduction that we had, and I will stop sharing so we can see all of you when we are talking, right? So directly jumping into one of my first question is PoSH training alone enough to prevent workplace harassment? And Krupa, you can start with, if you what I just laid down as what we think that why this conversation is important, and then take this question.
Thank you. PoSH training is foundational in my view, but it is not sufficient on its own. Yes, it sets the legal and ethical baseline, but real prevention comes from culture. right? We have seen when employees feel psychologically safe, that's what you said. It also needs empowerment to speak up.
Yeah.
The likelihood of harassment drops significantly when both these are in place. That requires ongoing dialogues with the associates and the employees. Leadership modeling is a big thing, and the system that supports accountability, right? Take action when there are issues identified. Yes, to answer your question in one word, no, training is not just sufficient to prevent workplace.
Absolutely. And as I said in the beginning, 5 things. One of it says employee awareness. That too, every year, should we even talk about it? If we talk about it, we'll get more cases, are the conversations I have heard. And as you rightly said, no, it's not enough. We need to do more. We have to look at beyond compliance. And today we'll figure out what we can do, right?
Yeah.
So jumping into question for Divya. So how can organizations shift from compliance-based training to culture-based learning? What do you think about this thing?
So I would definitely suggest using compliance as like a jumping off tool and essentially just using it as a tool to start the conversations. So especially if you have a company that come with a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of times this compliance training that you're doing is actually the first time that they're even introduced to PoSH and workplace sexual harassment as a topic or even as something that can be discussed. So I would say, so I mean, again, with my personal experience, when compliance is the only thing that you give importance to, it leads to more fear than understanding. So people just become so scared to ask questions.
Yeah.
Right. So what happens then is you're not really educating anyone. You're just literally drawing a line and you're telling them no beyond that. Right. So it's also very, very important to actually give them that space, to also understand as educators, as trainers, as leaders, that you know what, sometimes people are just coming from a place of just not having enough resources to know. So using compliance, and I think we've also talked about like money and like companies essentially saying that, hey, now we have to spend money for this, right? So I think then compliance, you looking at it as a tool, compliance as a tool, because then you go and say, no, we have to do it. There is no other choice. We have to do this. We have to have this conversation, right? So that also then gives you a little bit of step with like management and leadership to be like, hey, you know what? This is worth investing. This is something that we actually have to look into. So, and especially if you want to make it as part of your culture, these initial difficult conversations are what is going to get you there.
Absolutely. I think constantly just push, nudge. And Divya, I like your thought process of saying that compliance gives us that foundation, and that's the one jump start that you could use. And I had this lovely conversation with one of the lawyers recently. I was in his office and we were discussing about PoSH law and its importance. And suddenly he turns around and he says that, why did we even need the PoSH law? Vishakha guidelines was there, right? I said, listen, I joined workplace in 97. That was the year Vishaka guidelines came by, right? Nobody spoke about it. It was like, okay, it's something, some organizations which wanted to be really compliant because they were being acquired by a foreign organization or, multinational company, they would maybe go ahead and implement Vishaka guidelines. Otherwise, we didn't, I as an HR professional, I'm myself guilty that I didn't know about it. Only when I joined a multinational organization which was looking at it, that's when we adapted. And back then, I have known of so many women who faced sexual harassment but did not have the courage to speak up. But cut to 2025, I know of so many women who, if they face harassment, they at least tell somebody. They want to table it and they want to see it through. So has it changed from 97 to 2025? Definitely, right? Has the law helped them change it? The compliance, of course
Yeah.
it. So that's something that is important for us to know, that while it is important, but we have achieved that. The basic is achieved. Now what? We have to build on it, right? So uh, coming to Krupa and Divya, and this is an open question, and I think both of you, I would want you all to chime in about what role does leadership play in fostering a safe and inclusive workplace beyond training?
Can I go with Divya?
Yes, Krupa.
Yeah. I think leadership sets the tone, right? When leaders openly discuss safety and admit their own learning curves and act on feedback, it signals that safety isn't just a HR job, it's everybody's responsibility. And we have a marked improvement in our organization in reporting and resolution timelines when leaders actively participated in safety conversation in PoSH workshops and in all other activities. As I said earlier, role modeling, right? Leaders have to play that role to drive it and show how serious they are as an organization.
Absolutely, Krupa. Divya, you want to add to what Krupa?
Yeah, and I think leadership is also an opportunity for visibility. So, as like if you're on this side, and if you're on the HR side, that also adds a layer to essentially be like, how do I represent my organization properly? How do I elevate people or hire people as role models, like Kripa said, as leaders who are actually a representative of my company, so that people within my company also have and understand that, you know what, power exists. And we have women leaders, we have queer leaders, we have people who don't follow gender norms. And we have people who are incredibly talented and people who have been marginalized. So, how do we basically make sure that we elevate them, give them visibility, give them a space? So that happens, and automatically you also see a shift within the organization because then, because all of your representation, what is your media representation? You're always the butt of the joke, or you're always the comic relief, or there's so much of negativity. But then you step into this organization, within this organization, this is what my organization looks like, this is what my leadership looks like. So it also sets the tone for like the company of like, we value merit, we value inclusivity, we value our people. And so it's also a very good like rubric that we can also use, right?
Absolutely, Divya. Absolutely, Kripa. What you all said is bang on. Uh, Also, I think in your conversation somewhere, and I just want to emphasize this, that it many times it is looked as HR's responsibility. Creating awareness, creating training programs. It becomes an HR's role. HR is supposed to do it. Now imagine leaders involved in it and their team members watching, okay, my leader is front ending it. Imagine the culture shift it is going to bring in their thought processes. It is like, okay, not again, the HR has come with, sorry for lack of word, song and dance. Sometimes we are considered, and I'm a true blue HR person, and I've heard this. So it's not that. It is a leadership team, a leader leading it from the front, saying that this is what I believe, this is what I want to drive the culture, and this is where I stand. So it doesn't mean it's while HR could do whatever from the background. I think as a leader to be at the forefront is very, very important, right? So leaders play a very important role. And please, as if you're an HR persons on this, please ensure that we bring that in, right? Also, from the other perspective, I remember, and very sad state, I was doing a session where we do leadership conversations in Kelp. Whenever we work with organizations, we recommend them to start with leadership conversations, and the kind of questions that they come up with, I feel that could become, it doesn't have to be a full-fledged training program, but whatever they pick up from our conversation, they can actually do a huddle meet and share some examples, share a story, and that really sticks. So these are kind of and how will they, I mean, of course, they are so busy with their day jobs, listening from an expert and then relaying it back really helps the organization set that tone and culture. Yeah. All right, so I am jumping to another question, and this is again for both of you, that can DEI trainings go hand in hand with PoSH trainings, and have they been effective? So how can we incorporate DEI learnings into PoSH learnings? Yeah, so Kripa, would want to hear from you about gender neutral policies.
Yeah, yeah. So many of us know organizations started putting a PoSH policy and having a council and focus on it very seriously only after 2013, after the government of India had this law, right? And unfortunately, our law is very much for women because it doesn't include everybody, right? Um, in Thrive Digital, our PoSH policy was also centered on the law and hence was only for the women employees. But we changed it a year back. It's now includes everybody, every associates, every gender, and every associate, not just employees. We have third party vendor resources coming to our organization, visitors. The scope is now inclusive, I would say. And that's a big step for us, right? Many people think that, others don't. Women are the only ones who go through all this harassment, which is a myth, right? And uh, we opened it out. People had a lot of funny remarks, questions, but I think now it is a norm. And we have seen cases coming back, right? We feel proud of that change, having been able to make that change.
Awesome. Lovely. Divya, from perspective of people with different kind of identities, do you have to chime in anything in this aspect?
I think so again, stereotypes, biases, judgments, they will always be there with people. So even though I think you spend almost all of your day at work, the majority of your day at work, but at the same time, it's not that we come into it with the notion that, you know what, I can suddenly change their whole perspective and I can somehow transform this person into being an inclusive person, or I can override their family background. Nothing. You're not really going into it to sort of be like, I'm going to suddenly be the reason why, or this training is going to be why this person suddenly comes and becomes an ally or an accepting person. But I think very, very rigidly, very fundamentally, the line that we can hold within the organization is that your personal matters, whatever it is that happens at home, your thoughts, your views at home. But within, if you are an employee at this company, as long as you're a representative of this company within these walls, or even outside, if you're representing my company, these are the values that you're going to adhere to. These are that kind of way that you're going to treat people, right? And it also, there used to be this mentality, especially we see this from people who've come from other organizations who've gone through PoSH training quite a bit. So we're a very young organization. So from the first time we had PoSH, we had it absolutely inclusive and everything like that. So we're a very new company, right? So especially with people who come from other companies who've had PoSH training a bunch of times, the kind of feedback that we were getting from them, there was a little bit of this women are victims mentality. And we kind of realized that it was because it was essentially what they were taught. So how much can you actually blame them and us? And it doesn't even benefit us with like blaming, right? So then even the jokes that you kind of make, like you said, then everything then becomes women are the victims. And if such a terrible thing happens to literally any other gender, any other person, it could even be like a cishet man, it's not harassment. He should have enjoyed it, right? Oh, he would have enjoyed it, things like that. And we kind of don't realize how harmful these kind of like things are, where you're just supposed to like also be like, oh yeah, it was a joke, I'll just take it as a joke, I won't say anything. So that's also there, right? And also when you open up these conversations, it also informs how you create the rest of your policies. So, I mean, you are at the same time, you're very well still within this country. And why I would say that is, so today, if you look for an insurance supplier, the majority of your insurance suppliers will only give you your opposite gender spouse to be added into your insurance, right? And there's a lot of restrictions. So you won't really have affirmative surgery and things like that. They might not explicitly cover it. That might become an issue. So there is no way that I, today as an individual, can go fight the insurance complex and win over all of that. But it also opens up a conversation, then how do I make life easier for the people within my company? So even things like, so we have a neutral paternal policy. So we don't have maternal and paternal policy, we have parental policy. So we basically refer to people as either primary caregiver or secondary caregiver, and people are able to take. So what then happens is you automatically see that, you know what about single parents? So having a neutral policy doesn't just necessarily benefit, let's say, queer families or things like that. Immediately, the entire company is better off. So yeah, that's basically what happens when it cascades. Goodness will cascade.
Absolutely. I feel PoSH policy is just one part of it, and it has a whole universe that we need to work on, right? And whole universe to look at, and how PoSH is harassment, and harassment is when somebody is not respected for who they are, right? So that's one extreme. And if we start from respect and training people on what are respect, so the problem is people sometimes don't even know what are respectful behaviors, from what is disrespect. Sometimes, when we get cases and we handle and we realize that, you know, either they were ignorant about it or they didn't want to see that side at all, right? So important that DEI is intertwined, and we just don't look at, okay, explaining people that this is sexual harassment, these are your rights. If you're a victim, you have to do this, but many more. Start with what I realize in our trainings at Kelp is people do not know what is consent, what is boundaries, what is a gender, what does gender mean, what is sex means, what does LGBTQI stands for. It is different. Lesbian, gay is different from trans person. So such a basic level conversation, and we realize that we are talking about do not harass. We are still, at the primary level saying that if you do this, you will be a harasser. Right? So there is so much of work to be done at the core, and these are the core discussions that we should be having. And thank you, Krupa and Divya, for bringing that for us. So, Divya, I would want to ask you and extend that how does IC address gaps and identifies these DEI trainings to do? So is there something that IC can do? Yeah.
So I think we discovered this not intentionally, but sort of as we were sort of doing trainings and things like that. Well, or quite often when we think about DEI, we think about queerness, or we think about women, we think about caste, we think about class, things like that, right? So a very small stumbling block, which actually is such an important thing that we kind of realized later, was initially we were doing training only in English. And so when for compliance sake, when you need to have like a PoSH poster up with the IC details, so that's basically I have all of like how do I contact somebody. It was in English, and compliance said it had to be in Hindi, so it was in Hindi. And then the state, so we're in Karnataka, so it was in Kannada. We realized, so a lot of our associates, we have like a factory, a lot of like manufacturing associates, they only speak, let's say, Tamil. So they were actually not getting training. We were not being inclusive as a company. We were actually not including a good portion of our employees. So even with the posters that are put up, they don't know who to contact. They don't know who to reach out to. They don't know, I mean, everything that we're talking about, right? All of this amazing knowledge that we have that we're trying to educate people on, they don't know any of this. I mean, at least not from us. They might know it from other places, but not from us, right? They're not actually a part of this conversation. So what happens is they automatically think that it's not for them. So the moment they don't understand, if it's written only in English and your communication is in English, then people will assume that, okay, it's not for me. So, I mean, for us, especially when we were doing IC training specifically, and then we had the IC sort of, do we have these small activities that we do with IC where they create safe spaces and we interact with people directly outside of anything happening or without actually being an issue, right? So during these, we kind of realized that, you know what, we're actually not talking with people, we're talking to people with that assumption that everybody then understands English because it's easier for us. So I think that was a really important learning that we had. So then how do we actually work on that? How do we make sure that things are translated correctly, right? So at least the poster has to be translated correctly. How do we make sure that when PoSH training happens, there is an option for other languages? Like, how do we make sure that people are actually understanding what we're talking about? So I think that was like a very important learning that basically came to us, because everything that we're talking about, like, queerism and like, sexism and all of that, none of that people are learning if we're actually not being able to teach them.
Yeah.
So that was basically a huge learning that came. But yeah, so then which also led to a larger sort of analyzing what we were doing, because we were like, oh, best practices and we know the best and we're gonna do all of this training, and which was really introspective for us, being like, are we missing out these things? Like, are we actually not being that careful? So that was really important.
Great. Krupa, anything you want to add here about IC's role? Um,
Yeah, we use a combination of feedback loops, like we have the employee survey or the pulse surveys. We look at the exit interviews, the IC case reviews to see if there is a recurring theme in this, right? Leadership then works with HR and AI teams to prioritize training. Uh, Training material is not like static, right? We go revisit, add more topics. Example, if we see patterns around microaggressions or
mm,
relationship gaps, we tailor sessions to address these specifically. It has to be dynamic. And many case studies has to be from the real world, right? We
absolutely.
saw this on the ground and this is how it has to be addressed. It can't be very theoretical straight from the book.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember we saw a pattern in a particular organization that whenever liquor was involved, okay, there were multiple cases which were getting reported, and liquor we realized was free at workplace parties. So IC gave that feedback to leadership, HR, saying that this is something that, maybe free liquor and people don't know where to put a stop, so we need to put some policy around it, or maybe not provide liquor. Of course, they did not provide liquor, but they put some things around it so it can be taken in. IC can actually, as both of you
Yeah.
are saying, look at the cases that they are handling, come up with what are their observation. Is it becoming repeatedly? Like one of the cases we figured out that guest house was a place where people were feeling uncomfortable, and 2 3 cases got reported. Then we realized that there is no guest house management SOP, that who can live in guest house, who cannot. There should be a woman represent. All that was missing, so we put down policies around it. While policies is something you don't have to tell somebody that this is a bad behavior, I think they should know it. But we realize that there are those gaps, and these really helped us implement those, right? So, and as Krupa, you spoke about microaggression. So, I'm just extending that question for you. That how do microaggression and workplace toxicity factor into safety conversation? And Divya, I would really want you to chime in to that.
Microaggressions are often overlooked, right? Because they are subtle,
Yeah.
but their cumulative impact is profound, right? Recognizing these behaviors and responding constructively not only adds to these behaviors adds to toxicity and requires a lot of courage to report and take action, right? Because it's many frequently it is associated with power dynamics, in my view, right? People who are in power are the ones who use it for their advantage. That is where leadership accountability can become a non-negotiable asset, right?
Absolutely.
The role model aspect that I spoke about earlier.
Absolutely. Divya, you wanted to add to this?
So what we've kind of seen is that with microaggressions, people often by themselves, if they're facing microaggression, they sort of justify it away. It's too
Yeah,
simple. We can't talk about this, all that kind of stuff, They're like, oh, this is nothing. Oh, if he hits me, I will go tell. Or like, if they abuse me, I will go tell. So this microaggressions kind of be like, oh, they'll think I'm just making a big issue out of nothing. They sort of talk themselves out of it, right? So I think even with our training and all of our communication, we make it very clear that whatever actions are taken by IC will be equal to whatever harassment was committed.
Mm.
So, and what that also means is that even if you are uncomfortable, say it. That doesn't automatically mean that we're going to fire people or we're going to like blow it out of proportion, right? That just open up if they're feeling uncomfortable, right? And I think a really good metric that we've been using is femininity.
Okay.
So how people respond to femininity. So there was this whole conversation about what professionalism is and isn't. So what constitutes a professional workplace is, right? So in those conversations, a lot of things that were brought up were things stereotypically linked to masculinity, including the way people talk, walk, dress, present, all of that, right? So then femininity became a rubric of how accepting our organization actually was. So when people of all genders, whatever it is, at all leadership, hierarchy, whatever, express femininity, how are people actually responding to it? So initially, we would always get like, even when they're passing all of these comments and things like that, right? There is this judgment that happens where, oh, if somebody's taking the time to dress up, they would basically be like, oh, what is happening to, like, they would, like, if they've come like dressed, or if they haven't come dressed, what happened? Are you sick? Like, why haven't you put kajal? Why haven't you done this? So it was a lot of these questions would slowly eat away at people, right? The expectations that they would then think that their leaders had on them. I have to look a certain way, I have to present a certain way. So then essentially what we then did is femininity. So like in a lot of spaces, we realized that people look down on femininity or stereotypically feminine things. People don't think they're smart enough, so people who are feminine are not smart enough and things like that. So obviously all of us know that logically there is no connection between these two things, but it's just people are conditioned in such ways, right? So it's also about like, so today if randomly you decide to dress up, so the only time we realized that people were all very like, oh wow, for femininity was for events and for festivals. So like if people were coming in, then it was always like yay. So especially because we are an R&D company, manufacturing company, right? So doubling down on the kind of like culture that people kind of expect as professionalism. So when you have women, loud women, laughing women, women who are dressed up, when you have men who are basically dressing up, wearing kajal, wearing nail polish, when you have gender fluid people, how do they are they basically, so somehow masculinity is rewarded, stereotypically masculine things were getting rewarded. So that became like a point where we actually started addressing why is femininity basically been treated like this. So yeah.
Great point, yeah, femininity. And going back to what you just said, and it triggered a thought process that a woman wears a blue and pink as she would wear. I mean, there's no difference, but very rarely you've seen men wearing pink. So they look down on it because it is attached to a woman, right? So it's so subtle, it's so subtle, and I'm so proud of IPL team, Rajasthan IPL team, who wears pink jerseys, men team. Of course, it denotes to the pink city, Jaipur, but they flaunt pink jerseys, which I'm like, and I think there's one international football team also which does that. So I'm very, very happy with that. But this has started now. I think 5 years back, a pink shirt was looked down because it is attached to a woman, right?
It all
And
starts from birth, right? You don't give the pink color dress to a boy baby,
yeah,
right? It's wired from there.
absolutely. And the thing is, women don't have issues with the blue. I mean, they take blue, though maybe we were also not given, but and right now Divya is wearing blue. It is something that we didn't even think we would be so happy about it. Blue is a beautiful color, as beautiful as pink is. Also, I when you were talking, Krupa, about microaggression, I remembered of back then in 1997, very young, I just joined workplace, very large manufacturing setup. So my very senior leader, he was 60 plus, almost on extension. He used to like to take girls for lunches. That was his hobby. You know what? And if you refuse, when I had the audacity to once say that I don't want to come with you, uh, the way of expressing or retaliating would be he wouldn't give me an eye contact after that. Now, in my little sense, I didn't know, he didn't say anything bad to me. He didn't push me, he didn't touch me, he didn't do anything. How will I say that he doesn't give me eye contact? How do I even point out that it is making me uncomfortable that he's not giving me eye contact? Microaggression is so subtle. Problem is, how do you actually report it? And as both of you got it, right? So that femininity scale, I think will really help us bring that and start tabling it. Yeah. Okay. So Krupa, I have a question for you, that how can Um, how can companies measure the effectiveness of their workplace safety through these programs? What do you think?
I would think it is more qualitative and quantitative, right? The reporting rate, resolution timeline, the employee engagement score, feedback from training sessions. All this could be some of the metrics that we could look at. But we are to track cultural indicators of how safe our environment is, how inclusive it is. We'll have to, that has to be very subtle. And I think team meetings, leadership communications, town halls, that's where you can see that coming out. As a metrics, as I said, it could be your the reporting rate and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Divya, Krupa, I think I have exhausted my questions. But last question to both of you is, do you want to share any best practices around trainings about of PoSH or of DEI that works beautifully in your organization or the thing that you have known for our audiences today?
If you want to go, I can talk after that.
Okay. I think one thing that's definitely worked for us is actually we have these small safe spaces that we basically create, where are these very small random groupings of people where they're able to just come and speak. And in those spaces, we actually get a lot of very actionable things that come up. So a lot of times we've realized that people might not want to sort of accuse a specific person and talk because for a lot of reasons, microaggression, retaliation, all of that, right? But then in spaces like this, when we give them the freedom to talk generally, not about a person, but about an issue and how we can solve that issue, it's actually brought up quite a lot of really good feedback. And the other thing as a metric that we've basically used is we have surveys which are anonymous and surveys which are not anonymous. So we kind of very carefully track the kind of things that come up in both. So we actually check our psychological safety of our organization based on this. Are people actually feeling safe enough to open up and talk to us directly without only relying on anonymous tools? So if the only way issues are coming up is by anonymous tools, are there certain things that we have to look at? Are people actually feeling safe? So are people actually feeling okay in your organization, to be honest? Are they feeling happy to come to work and all that? And it also, one thing that we've started really deliberately doing is publicly, so if somebody makes a public statement, we will publicly correct them. And so there was a lot of these times where we were taught that the best thing to do is then pull them aside quietly, in a room. But then what we sort of understood is that if they're publicly making this opinion heard, there are people that agree with him that are now very happy that this person has said that. And there are
Yeah.
people that it affects who really think that you as an organization don't support them.
Do anything.
So I think one instance that happened with us was where a male leader basically stood up and talked about how motherhood is a private issue and that women should leave their motherhood at the gate before coming into the organization. And about how being a mother should not affect your work. And this, we were talking about how to implement more inclusive policy, right? So it was very important for us to then correct him publicly, to essentially set the record straight that as a company, that is not something that we will ever tolerate. So, which I understand for him might have been jarring, might not have been the best thing for him. But in that moment, it mattered a lot more what the entire room was basically hearing. So that is also, so not all the time do we do this, but especially when these kind of statements are made, we make it a practice to sort of like correct in public.
Awesome. I think y'all
Yeah.
really have audacity to do that.
Yeah. I really liked your feedback mechanism of anonymous versus non-anonymous, right? It's a good idea. Just want to add to that, some of the best practices we have included is making training continuous, which all organization, contextual and co-creative, right? Along with our employees, right? We involve employees in designing the content of these trainings, use real-time scenarios from our own workspace, and then ensure follow-up through reinforcement.
Awesome, lovely, lovely. It is brilliant, I think. And Kelp does this PoSH Awards, and one of our uh, uh, folks who had nominated themselves, they used to run a contest where they used to ask employees to create their own videos, okay, on awareness. And it was a contest. So the one which won maximum award would maximum likes, sorry, not award, maximum likes would become their training program for the entire year. So it was like for the people by the people. Brilliant, Krupa, as you said, involving them even in creating posters, having a poster competition. So they know what they actually mean, and it's just not posted as some creative person's idea, but can I
Yeah,
relate to it?
yeah,
Question, right?
yeah,
So it is a great idea, I think. And I think both, a mix of both is also important. Sometimes we need
yeah,
a creative mind to bring in that, and we also
yeah,
need it from the people. So I think a blend is also required. Okay, so I think we have come to the end. I see some questions here. Dr. Usha says calling out is the best, of course. Okay, Aparna is asking me a question. She's asking, would that, okay, I think she's talking about that eye contact. Um, so, Aparna, yes, I think we should have a cup of coffee and I can share with you why it was a microaggression. So, for the benefit of the audience, he was making me feel that how you can deny a person and you will not be taken care of. It was a form of microaggression. It was subtle way of saying that you cannot deny me, right? So it was not he feeling rejected. Uh, he he spoke from the space of owning it, that I own this and nobody can deny me. So he had that authority. He came from that space, and I can share with you there are multiple stories about it. Yeah. Not giving eye contact, of course, is a sign of disrespect. But in this situation, because I rejected an offer, the person was telling me, okay, how can you reject my offer? Now see what all consequences you'll face. And it started with not giving an eye contact. So Aparna says again, so it's the responsibility of an external member to try and identify the gaps in the safety envelope. Is it not equated to fault finding in the organization? Okay. So so I think she's speaking about when we spoke about external members' role. I think as an IC. I'm sorry, Krupa, Divya, please weigh in.
yeah.
Um,
No, I don't think it's only the external, person of the member on the council who is responsible, right? Yes, they are experts, SMEs, they know the law, legal aspects, but it is as much the organization and honestly, it is every employee's responsibility to create a safe working environment, an inclusive, positive working environment.
Yeah, absolutely. It is every employee's responsibility. And during an IC case, I think it becomes IC's responsibility, because IC has interviewed so many people for a particular case and they have come to a outcome. And now they see that there is a gap. There is a gap in understanding. There is a gap in policy. There is a gap how people behave, and how can that be fixed? So
Yes.
Kripa says compliance gives us a framework, but culture gives it life. Beautiful. I love that. And Ravi says not all enough, but we need to create awareness. Yes, we do. Oh, all right. All right. So we are going to have coffee with Aparna. Yes, sure, Aparna. It will be really delightful to go out with you. Thank you very much. And I would want to take a minute to thank Kripa and Divya. Thank you very much for this conversation, because I feel more minds come together. This will help us build this law, which has come after a lot of pull and push. I actually, while it is not gender neutral, it has so many loopholes. I feel it has come to us with a lot of struggle and multiple women who have laid their lives, their dignity for us to get this law. It is a super law. It is a very exhaustive law. Actually, if you look across the world, I think very detailed law. We have to build it up. I think work from all of us will make it more stronger, and continuous work is required. So thank you very much for this. Any closing comments from the two of you? Would love to hear.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me here. It's a learning for me, as I said at the start, right? Many a times we know only our part of the world, but good to hear and learn from what Divya said and you shared. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Krupa. Divya, any closing comments from you?
Yeah, I'm just very, very happy to be part of this panel. I'm actually very glad that panels like this actually exist and people are actually talking about these things, and that these conversations are not just centered around compliance, and that we're actually exploring further avenues, and that these kind of conversations are happening year round. I'm really, really glad that it is, and not just like, oh, when we have to do the PoSH training, like then suddenly everybody wakes up and like, oh no, we have to do this. So I'm really, really glad that we're actually having these conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think some questions have come in. What if external member do not involved in any activity of PoSH training? Is it like we have to take active? Okay. Poonam, you will need to reframe or rephrase this question for me. I didn't understand. Krupa, Divya, what if external member do not involved in any activity of PoSH training? Is it like we have to take active external member? Yeah, we need an external member with a lot of experience for sure. I will see, I have seen very experienced external member not doing a great job, and I have seen less experienced person doing very good job. So we have to evaluate our external members. It is important that they understand the spirit of the act and they understand the act also, right? By word and by spirit. So that balance needs to be there, is what my strong recommendation is.
And I think they're also specifically asking about training. So yeah, your external member or the organization from which your external member comes from can definitely be the organization that gives the training. It can also Training can also happen internally. So if you have like a really good team, people with really good experience, we've talked about how like internally you can develop programs as long as it's inclusive, it's compliant by law. If you're confident that you can do that, then yes, you can do training internally, or you can tie up with a completely different organization that will provide just training services. But even if we do that, I will always say that do not just
Outsource.
amazing organizations will have like incredible training, like really good training, but I will still say take the time to actually go through the training and make sure it's relevant to your organization, it aligns with the policies that you have, make sure that you have input regarding how the training is actually going to be. But that being said, yes, as far as compliance is concerned, you need to have an external member and you also need to have training. That
Absolutely.
makes sense.
Absolutely. And M is added here. She's saying that Kelp runs a DEI ambassador program and also PoSH SME program. What we realized is there was dearth of real good trainers, external members in our country, and we need to create more. So we are consciously working in doing that too. So if you're interested, please reach out and would be helpful. We would help you through it, because we realize we need to multiply quickly because there is a lot of need out there. Yes.
Yeah. And I think so specifically talking about training, there's also different types of training that you can actually give. You can have people come in and actually speak directly. You can also do like online courses, or there are these like theater programs and things that happen where it's like very interactive. So also finding the right type of program that is good for your company, because you know your people best. That's all I can actually say. What they would basically respond to is also very important.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Whenever we do training, that's one thing that we say, that we know our content, but you know your people. So it is important for us to co-create. I think Krupa also mentioned
Mm.
creating
Yeah.
is really important. So you know how they learn, you know how they think, you know the culture of your organization. So it is important to co-create. Yes. And please please do the program on your own. Of course, you can do it. But yeah, if you need, sometimes you need extra pair of hands. We understand you have day jobs to do. There are so many other things, but this is an important piece of the culture. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I think we have 5 minutes above. I promised Krupa and Divya that we'll close exactly at 5. Thank you so much for your time, all of you. Thank you for dialing in and supporting Kelp and ILA. We will continue to bring in such amazing speakers on this forum again and again. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.